Hello and welcome. You find me here behind the new Shinn Ronson Prismatic. The Ronson's been in the range for a couple of years now, and this shape sees no difference to last year, just a graphical change. Since the player version, the deck has adopted additional channeling, pushing its grip a little bit further up the power tree. It's a deck billed as a medium to higher power enduro, big air and freestyle machine, at home in all environments. It's full boot compatible for those who like to ride in bindings as well. Of all the decks, this feels the most edge oriented. It has the most traditional feel. You can trace its lineage back to the Ultrasonic, which was the most square-sided and edge-oriented board that Shinn's ever made. Even though the channels help you pin the rail down, it's a board that likes to be canted over at a pretty good angle much of the time. You have to make sure your rail is consciously engaged. It's not as engaging as an all-rounder until you really start to drive it. This starts to make the board sound a bit full on, but in truth, of the two freestyle capable decks, it's easier to get good pop, height and slack than it is on its sister board, the ADHD. And it's why many of the team riders choose the Ronson as their one single board option. It has very good range. It's capable of pointing and driving well upwind. That squarer outline serves it well if you're trying to get the most out of average conditions. The channeling helps you keep the rail pinned, and the tip channeling in the very tip of the board helps you get that last bit of hook from your carve and get more solid and consistent pop. It's plush enough to keep your knees happy, but not so plush that you can overpower it, and when you push really hard it does have a good response, so it strikes a very nice balance. Fitting boots is a good option as it makes extra use of the leverage on the rail, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's fitted with a 6-inch central binding inserts for this reason. It's a good board for consistently big boosts, though ultimately it will run out of grip and control next to the Absinthe and ADHD. It's got the same dimensions as last year, which is longer than the well-known player edition. This is in part to help with the stance and landings, making sure that the fins are further away from you when you touch down. So please only look at the width of your current board and compare it to the width of these boards. The length is a completely, erroneous way of figuring out how big the board is. We had a lot of confusion with people buying too small a board when the length was revised up. So there you go. Quite possibly the best looking board in the range, if I do say so myself, but that's a purely personal thing, I know. Like I said earlier, it's a firm favourite in the range and revered by some of the finest riders I know. If some of what I've said about it strikes a chord, I dare say that you'd really get on very well with it, so please try and get a shot on one if you can. For what it does, it's right at the top of its game.